Ready, go.
Dude, don't. There's no reason to do that. She can just record. This isn't like film. We're super stoked to launch Freight 2025, Forecasting the Future, our new book sponsored by Launchit Public Relations. Canadian Pacific Teamsters settle their strike, and Brazilian owner-operators shut down the highways. I'm JP.
And I'm Chad.
And we talk about all these topics and more this week on What the Truck.
JP, what you got going on there, dog?
Bells too hearted.
Stop it with that. Well, let's not hear anything more about that since
What?
you drink it every single time. Oh, you got more to talk about?
I'm just admiring the beautiful orange hue of the top of the can as it, sort of is nestled in my koozie.
Do you ever feel like branching out and trying something new?
No.
Never?
No.
Like really, you would never.
No, I'm a creature of habit.
Well, anyway, I'm trying something new each and every week, JP. And right now I'm trying something from Left Hand Brewing Company, a milk stout. It's really good. I think it probably kind of replaces the old Guinness that everybody used to drink. It's super smooth. It's got this soft roastiness, like kind of some mocha notes. You know what you never get in your beer?
Mocha?
Notes. That's right.
Oh,
and
notes.
roastiness.
Notes.
You never, mocha notes. You don't get that because you always drink the same thing. So, like, you might want to branch out.
Oh, you're talking about me personally. I thought you were just talking about the general you. Wow, you're just like calling me out.
Well, like you that sticks with the same thing every time. Like
I get notes.
I'm not calling.
I have grapefruit notes, dude. I've got.
I meant mocha roasted notes.
Oh yeah, no, I don't get.
Arguing?
I don't get mocha roasted.
Anyway,
notes. Yeah, true.
Well, someday you may want to branch out a little bit, but
well, you know what I have to say to that?
What's that?
Opening up it too hearted.
All right. Well, congratulations. We got a lot going on this week, more than we can really take on. We've got an exciting interview for our listeners with Susan Fall.
Yeah. Susan Fall is she runs Launchit Public Relations, and they represent a bunch of really cool companies that's sort of at the intersection of trucking and technology. And it's really cool that she got behind our Freight 2025 Forecasting the Future project. It wouldn't have been possible without her support, and it's so cool because it's jam-packed full of different thought leaders, different everything from engineers to executives to data scientists to journalists, all just sort of taking a different angle on where our industry is going.
Yeah, and we're announcing it officially. It's up. We've got the page for it. We've got the link.
Yeah,
you
so
can
it's
get an ebook version of it on
right.
our website.
It's freightwaves.com/freight-2025.
And that's easy enough to remember. It's the title of the book. And basically the idea here is that we asked industry experts and insiders in the logistics industry to share their visions and articulate their hopes and fears. How clearly are we seeing toward the future right in front of us and immediately beyond? We asked them what they were seeing as the next big thing, the headwinds, the tailwinds, the innovations we're already celebrating, and the adjustments necessary to keep up and stay ahead.
And we thought of this project as being sort of descriptive rather than prescriptive.
Right.
Instead of telling the contributors what to write about, we just wanted to kind of get a survey of all these really smart people and see what they were already working on and what they were talking about. And so it ranges broadly, across economic and marketplace trends. There's stuff about blockchain, stuff about autonomous trucks, connected vehicles, 3D printing, the electrification of the transport industry, and all the possibilities that we see in the next, near term future for rail, maritime, air freight, everything like that. And people also weighed in on things like, leadership and creativity, strategy, game theory, and just how to get it done. And we basically just said, let it rip. Like, just tell us what's on your mind. And we wanted something provocative, readable, and also data driven. And we feel like that's really what we got.
Yeah, kind of like FreightWaves itself. So, I mean, the sections, they're all kind of a little bit of everything. They touch on logistics, supply chain, and just the challenges and perils of innovation. Super excited about this book. Shout out again to Susan Fall and Launch It for making this happen, at least on the scale that we did. We distributed this last week at the Transparency 18 event to about 800 people to begin with. And one of the cool things we mentioned is we interviewed Susan Fall during this time.
And we're going to present that interview a little bit later in this podcast. And she'll talk about what she does, the kinds of things that she's seen change in the industry since her days at Qualcomm, which was a technology company that sort of pioneered putting GPS on trucks. And we really just get her perspective and kind of the rationale behind our project.
That's right. And so we will be presenting that to you momentarily. One of the headlines of the week that we kept everybody close to date.
Yes, with John Kingston issuing a flurry of articles about the Canadian Pacific Teamsters strike, right?
Lots of updates, which actually ended up being resolved. It appears so far. It found a quick resolution.
We'll see.
We'll see. And what's the general consensus about? Give us a tiny bit of background, JP, if you could, about what was the issue, and then can you remember the terms of the resolution such as it stands?
So they haven't actually announced the official terms of the resolution. It's still a tentative deal.
It's tentative, yeah.
But here's the thing. So two groups of workers for Canadian Pacific Railway went on strike. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers and the larger Teamsters union that was representing locomotive engineers and conductors, right? Okay, so this is actually the third time in 6 years that the Teamsters have threatened a strike. And the IBEW was right there with them. They managed to settle and reach an agreement with CP management just before the deadline passed. So only the Teamsters actually walked out. About 3,000 workers, and it completely shut down the railway. Which, if you
indicates that they mean business.
If you're not familiar with the Canadian Pacific, it's a Canadian railway, obviously mostly located in southern Canada. Majority of the density in the network is west of Winnipeg, but it actually stretches down into Minneapolis, Chicago, Kansas City. It goes through Ontario, so it actually,
which we show graphically on the FreightWaves site.
Connects Detroit to Windsor. It goes to all but upstate New York, all that kind of thing. So the Canadian Pacific management instituted a new labor relations sort of strategy in the past few years, and they've been firing a lot of union employees over the past 5 years. A lot of complaints. So there are a lot of issues, and this is all sort of boiling to a head. There have been a few disputes in the past, like I indicated, 3 strike threats in the past 6 years. The interesting thing about this one is that it seemed like Canadian Pacific was trying to manufacture a crisis in order for the Canadian government to issue some kind of get back to work legislation. And what the real the fulcrum in this conflict was Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, making a public statement saying, we are not getting involved in this. We are letting collective bargaining take place and do its thing. And so then shortly after that, there was basically a day-long strike. Then they reached a tentative 4-year-long contract renegotiation, and they're back in business.
Good.
That's what happened.
Yeah, and it seems and they're happy that they say that the Teamsters say that their families will be happy. The 12,000 people that it affects.
And we'll see. Hopefully if both sides have gotten a deal that they're comfortable with for the next 4 years and they finalize that, then business can proceed as usual. The railway can operate without any more hiccups, and there won't be this constant sort of environment of confrontation with management, like there has been for the preceding 6 years.
I'm optimistic that it will be. It looks like the Teamsters are pleased with where the negotiations led.
To be honest, like everyone knows that Canadian National Railway basically has the same network, and if they shut down, they're just going to pick up all the volume. Like they know that they, you know what I'm saying? Like they know that it's not really helping anyone to have an extended work stoppage.
What's interesting is that, based as we are in the United States, we've had a strike above us to the north in rail. And we have now, also our next headline, the Brazilian owner-operator shutting down the highways. We're having a strike to the south in Brazil. Kind of a bigger deal.
Oh, way bigger deal. And you
covered the story.
Way bigger deal.
Yeah, man. Give us some background on this.
So this is kind of complicated. I'm going to break it down as quickly as possible. But basically, the two previous socialist administrations of Brazil had...
Lots of corruption.
A little bit of corruption. Yeah, a lot of corruption. But that's not the point. The point is that the state-owned oil company, Petrobras, was basically subsidizing the cost of, gasoline and diesel fuel. So they were buying fuel, oil on the open market, on the international market, and selling it for a cheaper price, a fixed cheaper price to Brazilian consumers. And the state and, the Brazilian government was massively subsidizing that. So when President Dilma Rousseff was removed from office in 2016, she was replaced by a more conservative open markets guy named Michel Temer. And his administration...
And boy, is he under some heat right now.
Oh, he's the most unpopular president in Brazilian history. And it's kind of shaky right now. A lot of people perceive his sort of administration as being illegitimate because it came from this impeachment, but blah, blah, blah. The point is that he has changed the policy of the government so that Petrobras no longer subsidizes artificially low diesel prices. Now the price of diesel fuel in Brazil will float with international crude oil benchmarks, just similar to how
against the U.S. dollar is their benchmark.
Right.
And it's gone high. And
so it's more than doubled, and it's really pinching the owner-operators in Brazil, as you would imagine, who don't enjoy the fuel surcharges of larger fleets and things like that. Of course. It's coming right out of their pockets. And so they all went on strike. I guess it's been about 12 days now.
Wow.
They
shutting down highways.
They erected hundreds of roadblocks all across the highway system of Brazil using their own vehicles.
And what are some of the effects that you itemized in your story?
For one thing,
so many things are happening.
I mean, one of the major things is that there's shortages of goods all across the country. Everything from
it's shutting down the country effectively.
Slowly but surely, they have a stranglehold on the economy. So, grocery stores have run out of fresh food, but also things you don't even think of, like the fact that gasoline is delivered to gas stations in trucks.
Yeah, they're running out of gas.
That's no longer happening. So no one can even drive anywhere. Like
shutting down schools.
The universities have shut down. Even farmers can't get feed delivered to their...
They're slaughtering chickens early or something, you wrote?
Yeah. The Guardian reported on that.
Okay.
So it's been kind of crazy.
And it's already crazy in Venezuela. I mean, wow, what a crazy,
Yeah.
It's crazy in South America. And, I know a lot of owner-operators frequently in North America say that they feel like they should strike.
Right.
To raise
you always see people threatening that, saying this is the only way.
Is it just rhetoric or?
I think so. I mean, nothing's. I don't know if it's just the organizational strength of OIDA isn't enough to propel that. I don't know if it's because owner operators feel like they have too much to lose, or if
we have a strong economy. It's a larger, more diverse.
And it's just. I just think it's not as ideological. On the one hand, OIDA functions almost like a labor union for owner-operators and independent drivers. But on the other hand, the actual people that do that are pretty independent guys who aren't just going to, they're not like your typical union members who are, rank and file and are going to like follow what the governing committee says and go on strike and do this and do that.
So it's more complicated, but things are
complicated.
happening in the geopolitical sphere.
Yeah, it's two really big transportation-related labor disputes on our northern side and our southern side.
Yeah. And now it is time to play Big Deal or Little Deal, where Chad and JP run down the rest of the headlines that we can find fit to print within 2 minutes or less leading up to the Susan Fall interview. So,
are you ready, Chad?
Well, not really. But ready or not,
here I come.
Okay.
Fuel prices surge over 30% from last year. Big deal or little deal?
I have to say little deal, even though I wrote this article. I feel like the peak, we've seen the peak, but it's not going to go down that much lower. Read the article to find out the details, but it's not that big of a deal for the travel season. Go to Yellowstone if you want to.
The Fed Beige Book survey highlights strengthening manufacturing, but also labor shortages. Big deal or little deal?
It's another one of those things that I'm going to say is a little deal. It's a really great article by Ibrahim, and it's very sophisticated. We got a lot of things going on with our economy right now, but there's a lot of anxiety. Things are growing, but there's no big news.
Michelin commits to a sustainable, fully recyclable world of tires. Big deal or little deal?
Well, I'm going to say big deal because, hey, isn't recycling a big deal? And Michelin, they currently biosource 26% of their natural rubber. They're going for 30%, but even that small amount will reach, if they achieve those ambitions, it will save 33 million oil barrels every year. JP, Shippo introduces new workflow that uses machine learning to make shipping easier. Big deal or little deal?
It's a big deal. It's the direction the industry is going. All of the logistics management software is using AI and advanced analytics to help meet customer expectations. Big deal.
Goods trade deficit narrows again as both exports and imports fall. Big deal or little deal?
I'd say it's a big deal. Normally, when the American economy grows, our trade deficit actually widens because we import, we consume more than we export. So, yeah, I'm gonna say big deal.
Is F-150 production shutdown visible in freight market sonar data?
It's a little deal, but it's really interesting that the basically 8-day shutdown in Detroit and Kansas City was visible in turndowns, inbound and outbound of those markets.
All right. Well, I talk too much, and so therefore we failed to achieve the 2-minute mark.
Chad!
But anyway, what a fun rundown of the headlines this week. And now, presenting Susan Fall. Welcome to What the Truck Transparency 18, coming live to you. It's Chad and
JP.
And we are excited to be sitting down with founder and president of Launch It PR, Susan Fall. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys.
Great to have you here.
I love being here. I'm a little bummed I don't have a beer to crack with you, but it's a little early for that.
I know, I'm here drinking Diet Coke. They've got us working so hard.
What are you going to do?
We can survive.
People are still, brimming off their coffee right now. We better not break with tradition. But yeah, super fun. We're super pumped up and we're buzzing with excitement, if not beer. So,
it's Susan Fall, we should say, in Launch It Public Relations, is the sponsor of Freight 2025, Forecasting the Future, which is the thought leadership book we put together for the conference.
The inaugural book of FreightWaves, Freight 2025. Very excited to have put this together with about 30, names in the industry that have forecast the future, not only for until 2020, but all the way until 2025. We think that that'll keep the shelf life of this book just alive and cooking for years to come. Susan, what do you think about that?
I'd have to agree with you on that. There's a lot of really insightful. I finished reading it on the plane, and
wow.
great insights in there. I think a lot is happening. And I think a lot of these are going to happen in 2020 as well. I know we're pushing to 2025. The rate things are moving right now. We're going to see some of this stuff happen in 2020.
So the book has pieces from people in the financial industry, data scientists, tech people and software people, guys, and women who've spent their entire careers in asset-based transportation. It's really like a pretty diverse group of perspectives, all sort of forward-looking, and it's just, I think it's really cool that launch it back to this project. I mean, it kind of shows how you guys are keeping your finger on the pulse of the industry.
And one word about Launch It. You all were founded in 2000, and you chose to serve one industry and one industry only, trucking, and in particular the role that technology plays in the North American trucking community. In that time, you have launched well over 100 products and services to the trucking industry, and you fully vet your clients, a little bit of a distinguishing factor from other PR firms. And the clients that you vet, they must have a viable product that truly contributes to the industry. What do you feel? Why does it have to truly contribute? What do you mean by that?
You know, I fell into this industry by working with Qualcomm. I got a job. I'm from San Diego. Got a job with Qualcomm in 1993. Knew nothing about trucking, knew really nothing about technology, and my job was to travel the trucking trade shows and teach everyone about GPS. 7 years, fast forward to 2000, we saw a lot of companies trying to get into trucking and just make money. And didn't know trucking, didn't know anything about it. And a lot of the trucking companies got burned. And this is an industry that works on margin profits. We all know pennies. And so I made a point when I left Qualcomm, started Launch It in 2000, was going to just serve trucking, but truly make sure that this was not a product that just, thought that they could make money off trucking and then bail out on it.
Right. We've heard a lot at this conference about the difference between like a technology-driven solution versus a business-driven solution. People developing solutions and then looking for a problem versus tech companies who go to their customers, find out what their issues are, and then try to create something that actually helps them out.
And I think what happened a lot, and certainly happened back in the 90s, GPS cellular companies, they saw what Qualcomm, Omnitracs were doing. They're like, wait, I have GPS. I can work for trucking. It's a very complex industry. We're seeing it happen with Uber. People think, we can just Uberize freight. It's not that easy.
No,
and
fragmented
so
industry,
it's
gigantic.
And the people, there's so much involved. It's not as simple as people think. And again, tech companies will have a tendency, especially newer ones, and they're excited. They come in and, trucking's a massive market. We're going to work for them. Their solution may not always work.
Well, and when you were, it's kind of like the industry's gotten like a lot cooler and hipper, like this Transparency 18 event. I have to say, it's pretty cool. It's like, and so, but when you entered into it, say, what was the attracting factor to you? Because women, there aren't a lot of women in.
Let me tell you, I can still remember my first, and I always joke. I don't know if Qualcomm was brilliant or just naive to send in a 25-year-old surfer chick from California into these trucking conferences, and I still remember my very first one, and it was an atrium style, so I could look down at what I was walking into. It was probably 600 or 700, all men. I think I saw about 2 women, which were spouses.
Sounds really intimidating.
Yes, I ran back to my room and busted open the bar real quick.
Nice.
And anyway, what saved it was that I actually was teaching this group of people something. And it's in GPS. You gotta think, back in '93, you hadn't heard of GPS. Your average, so it was a very basic. The global positioning system is a satellite, group of satellites, blah blah blah. So it was a very, I could educate, and we were teaching how we could get rid of, check calls and very basic things.
Yeah, I heard about GPS in like the mid to late 90s as a way to help you find fish better when you're fishing in a lake.
And you didn't even. You're exactly right. It was not. We
that was
didn't
a good
have
application.
mapping. So it was an interesting. A lot of people don't realize. Qualcomm was testing their CDMA technology on trucks, on OmniTracks.
I see, okay.
So your phone, truck drivers were texting way before you and I. They were the ones seeing if text messages could work across country.
I bet they were.
So,
That's cool.
so fast forward, I ended up falling really.
In a way, though, it's kind of interesting. We talk about trucking being slow to adopt technology, but sometimes it seems like they're actually ahead of the curve.
So
because the problems are so complex that they face.
I'd say in the 90s they were in that respect, and I really attribute a lot of it to Qualcomm because they were it's a brand new world of mobility and everything, and we could really see what it meant to the trucking industry in that respect. But then trucking has slowed down a bit because there just hasn't been sexy, it hasn't been cool. It really kind of the 2000s have been just very moving forward, and again, a lot of them got burned in the 90s. Trucking is a very thoughtful. They're going to look at your product, they're going to test it, they're going to ask their friend, and they're going to test it again and look at it some more.
Well, and well, as you're talking about that, I'm looking at your essay that you wrote in Freight 2025, and you kind of have some introductory thoughts about it, and then you write this rhetorical question. You write, how can an industry be so unbelievably necessary yet so disdained?
Yep.
And I want, like, what do you make of that? How do you answer that question?
I think one great thing that is happening with all right now is that for the first time we're seeing trucking in mainstream media, not in a negative note. Whenever you heard about trucking on anything to do with the news, it was because of an accident, pretty much. You never really heard anything about a driver shortage, and boy, what could that mean? Your average citizen never really understands how you got product. All they know is they hate trucks. They're big trucks. They get in my way.
Yeah.
We should remove them all. Trucks shouldn't drive during rush hour, and they get regulated. And they're told things like, okay, you can't drive between midnight and 5 a.m. This was a rule, and then now they've pulled it off without taking 2 15-minute breaks. Okay, so where were these trucks going to pull over? And every time you pull over, that's an accident. All these things and it's because we don't like trucks. But when
they
people
take up room in our highways,
and people are now
big.
realizing because of e-commerce, and I think people are starting to kind of realize the movement of goods more than they ever have before.
I see that too. I think the e-commerce.
People never thought, oh, this carpet came by truck, this medicine, this food, this water, this all came by truck. People don't realize that.
And people, I think with the e-commerce, having more things delivered directly to your house, you think about just where's my stuff more, and then it leads people into being interested in track and trace, whether it's Amazon or UPS or the post office. And so then you start thinking about these whole supply, like, oh, it started here, it went here, and it all makes sense.
You can visually see it now. My son is obsessed. He orders things on Amazon. He goes, can we look at it, Mom? And he likes to see that it left the FedEx facility in Memphis, and it's now en route or whatever, I think that opens up that ability to now people are understanding the movement of goods. And
people are more aware of like global trade and things like that. The idea that products are moving back and forth on the value chain and being transformed from raw materials into finished goods and coming to your house.
And it's true. The trucking industry has always been an economic indicator. We know 6 months in advance that wood isn't being hauled to a lumber yard to then build a house. We know all of these things that are happening. So it's always been an amazing and is an economic indicator.
Right.
And I think awareness now of it is a very big thing, an exciting thing that's happening that hopefully
and in the business press, I think logistics companies are just getting treated with a lot more attention and respect. People realize how important they are, and like you said, all of the different things that they can tell us about the overall health of the economy.
Absolutely. And now our big,
I think it helps that that tech is getting so involved, right? The sexy tech startups, getting a little Silicon Valley in there.
Absolutely.
Connecting the dots. I feel like we're already segueing into what we were going to do for the 5 good minutes.
Yeah.
So we're doing good. Let's just keep going as we are.
Right on.
Can you? So we're going to ask this question. We're already answering it. But can you've been talking a little bit about how things have changed? Well, on last week's segment, Susan, we talked to Ellen Voy, the president of Women in Trucking. She was great, delightful.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, how are you seeing, like, kind of an emergence of maybe more women in this space, or are you?
That's interesting, and I love seeing. I was a founding board member of Women in Trucking as well. I was
really?
their very first sponsor.
Outstanding.
So it's been interesting to watch, and I'm a huge fan, obviously. And yes, of course, we're seeing more women. It's still not. I mean, look around this room. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. At the end of the day. Tech, sure, there's more women coming in it. It does have a tendency to be more male heavy.
Even in tech.
But I think for me, it's more the just the openness that's happening, the awareness, and the transparency that technology is starting to play. I think that is going to be a big role that will then roll into the awareness of it. You can start to see people are understanding things like the driver shortage and the mechanic, the maintenance shortage. There's all these things that are going to be happening, and yes, it would be fabulous if women can fill those roles.
Yeah.
Just being diverse is good.
Right. Everything from just getting more eyes on a problem from different backgrounds to help understand it, to just labor shortages, like you say. Next question, what is the single biggest thing that you're excited to see in the coming year or two?
Man, we know that there's a lot of things that we're all excited about in general. Is there a way to focus that in? Is there something in 2018 that is like that soon that you're excited about seeing, or?
That is you have to remember I'm in PR, so I have a tendency to go the more human side of things sometimes versus the tech side.
Oh, that's
and for me, the human side of that is the awareness of trucking, and I think and we may start to see some respect from that, and that's what we need. We can have all the tech in the world. It's not going to solve anything if we don't have drivers driving these trucks or technicians repairing these trucks. So until our next generation starts to replace these boomers that are retiring, have any interest in trucking, and that's why my thing, I know I was kind of a play on words with bringing back the Pony Express. We have to think of the human element behind trucking too, and not keep these guys on the road for 2 months at a time.
I've heard you say that. I've heard it said a lot that this is actually very much of a relationship industry.
100%.
And
I think that the tech plays a role in that, but we're not going to be. You can't automate everything. You can't, and we have all these load boards. It's still relationship. We are still and maybe one day that will change, but it's not going to change overnight. And I think for me, the excitement in this next year is that we really are seeing trucking viewed in a much more positive light than we ever have. And
the perception is changing.
Everything.
The Wall Street Journal is
writing about it. You have these hip young tech companies that want to get in, and again, I think that's great. Understand what you're getting into. Understand this industry. Don't just look at the numbers and say, "Oh, there's millions of trucks out there. That's for us." Understand this industry. And
Amen. That is a good word. And understanding it is seeking to find solutions and trying to help improve, not only efficiencies but the ways that we interact with each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. So excited to have you here.
It was fun.
We need to have a beer, even
I know.
if it's not right here.
Yeah, we'll have one tonight.
Discussing it
Sure.
on the podcast. Just a different venue forum. But man, everybody, look for in the coming weeks. Week and a half, I think, is the estimated date of actually having the Freight 2025 book live and downloadable. Just free from our site. So thanks again for your sponsorship of it.
Yeah,
Susan.
that's exciting. That
And
was,
May the
thrilled to be involved with this book.
Thank you. And may the shelf life live on.
Amen.
All right. And that'll do it for the big stories this week. As always, we go into more detail about each of the topics we've talked about today on our website, FreightWaves.com. We will continue to publish this podcast weekly, so be sure to subscribe to What the Truck on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, make sure to leave us a review to let us know what you think of our new podcast.
And if you're interested in freight economics and finance, come to our Market Waves conference at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center in Grapevine, Texas this November. Visit marketwaves18.com to learn more about this event.
That'll do it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week on What the Truck.